Hello. This was a recent conversation I've had over some private messages, but I think the core of the problem that was shared to me is worth kind of putting in a public place because I think a lot of people will be going through more or less a version of this experience if you are in the LGBTQ community. So, the experience that was shared with me is that, hey, so basically, I have a parent who keeps on wanting to check in and kind of like private into my personal life and private life because they want to make sure that I am not a lesbian or basically any kind of LGBTQ. And so the conversation around this is very random. It happens unexpectedly, and the parent demands that the person shows them like proof, basically, that they aren't engaging in devious acts or whatever in that vein, right? And so it's now this on the surface seems like the parent is kind of a dick and a bigot problem, but there's a lot of nuance that you have to consider in order to really think about how to navigate this situation. So, the first thing that's really important is are you a minor or an adult? So, even when you are a minor, your parents being in total control of your personal life, it does happen, right? And it does suck. And especially, even if you're not in the LGBTQ community, if you have helicopter parents, like a lot of Asian people do, the parents want to get up all in your business, right? Because they want to control every aspect of you. And so, when you're an adult, things are different. But when you're a minor and you are actually dependent on your parents, you kind of have to. Well, you don't have to do anything. But when you are a minor, you have to understand that the experiences that you are going through is a part of your upbringing. And when you're going through difficult times in your upbringing, it's tempting to think, my life is fucked up. And if only my life isn't so fucked up. If only I had supportive parents. If only I had this better circumstance of XYZ, I would have a better life. But because of my upbringing, I am fucked. It's so tempting to think that. But the important thing to realize ultimately is that your upbringing is just your starting point. So, if you play a MMORPG with a big map, or I don't know, like Zelda, Legend of Zelda, uh, Breath of the Wild, right? You have a wide open map, and you can go anywhere, but you just have a starting point, right? So, where you want to go is ultimately up to your decisions. How you get there is up to your decisions. But the thing is, you have to start at some point. But what I'm saying is that starting point doesn't necessarily preclude your destination. You are able to get to your destination, right? So, if you are a minor, the what can help in terms of thinking around this is, yep, this thing is happening and this does suck, but right now my parents are responsible for me and this is how they are choosing to parent me, and right now legally I have to be parented by them. And so while well, actually, let's talk about that later. But that's the one way to view things when you are a minor. Okay, and now, what if you're an adult? Things are a little bit different. Why it's different is because you're not really a dependent of your parents legally anymore. You are an independent person. There's nothing that stops you from signing contracts for rent. There's nothing that stops you from buying a car. There's nothing that stops you from working because you're a fully functioning adult in your society. Therefore, your parents can think whatever they want about you, they can say whatever they want about you, but the thing is, conceptually and at the logical level, they're no different from another citizen in your country. They're just another person now. You have become peers in society. Of course, by blood and by relation, they are still your parents, right? But it's important to recognize that when you're an adult, you have to live your life and not the life that your parents want you to live. You've done that for 18 or 20 years, right? That's the point of parenting. That's the point of raising a child, so that they get a starter version of life. And again, it's tempting to think that there are better starting points and worse starting points. But that kind of a mindset, you can choose to think that, or you can choose to unconsciously think that. But that kind of a hierarchy around upbringing is only going to bring you suffering, because it's a prescriptive way of looking at the world, right? And anytime you have a prescriptive way of looking at the world, when the world throws you off with the counter evidences, because the world doesn't really need to comply with your prescriptions, right? Then you suffer. So, coming back to the main topic, when you are an adult, you don't have to do anything that your parents tell you, because if you think about it, if a random stranger who lives like 5 blocks down from you tells you to, hey, show me your DMs, hey, show me how prove to me that you're not a lesbian, you don't have to, right? There's nothing that makes you legally responsible for doing so. So the complication here is that if it's a stranger, you can just think that, oh, I'm not going to do that, right? But because they're your parents, there's a lot of implied power hierarchy. There's a lot of implied and more importantly, unconscious power hierarchies at play, because they basically gave you life, right? But it's that you have to really think about whether you want to live your life or the life that your parents want you to live. And I have a video about that talks more about that topic specifically in depth. So I encourage you to check out that video about the parent-child relationship. And it's about like, do parents exist for children, or do children exist for parents? It's basically answering that question in depth. But coming back to this situation in which the parent is trying to drill into the personal lives, the thing is, as long as you're an adult, and sometimes if your parents are open to conversations, you can just say no, right? But now this is where this problem goes beyond the topic of parent-child relationship. When you're a people pleaser, when you have people pleasing tendencies, or when you have these types of situations unfolding, you can't say no because you don't know how to justify it, right? But the thing is, again, stranger from 5 blocks down the road asking you to do something and you say no, you don't need to justify anything. When you want to, good, you have free will. When you don't want to, you have free will. You don't need to explain anything, right? I don't need to explain to the foundations that I'm donating to, like, hey, you know what, I'm donating to you because blah, 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 blah. I have no obligation to do that. If I just want to fund their nonprofit, I just donate the money and that's it. If I want to, steal from someone, I don't need to let them know, like, hey, I'm going to steal from you, okay? No, I'm just going to steal it, right? So the world already goes around not explaining things. There's no reason for you to justify anything. But we have to think implicitly and unconsciously. We keep thinking we need to justify it, and we need to have good enough reasons to justify my refusal. But gotta understand that it's not necessary. And so, to put this knowledge into practice, the important part is, what's gonna happen if I flat out refuse no to my parents? Because that possibility is always there for you, but you don't choose it for a reason. So when you stop and think about what's gonna happen if I tell my dad no, what's gonna happen if I tell my mom no, and then thinking of the all the reasons that come down, and you probably can make a mental flowchart of all the things that are gonna happen, right? And it's actually sitting down with yourself and analyzing each branch of the flowchart and thinking, why does this part stress me out, right? So, example of this is my mom wants to, check my DMs, and I can say no, and she will say, why not? So this is an example, right? I can say, well, because I don't want to, and it's my personal life. And then now, what will she realistically say based on the deep big data I have about my parents? What is my mom gonna say? Well, she's gonna say, "Oh no, we're family. We don't hide anything." And then what do I say, right? So if I'm blocked there, that means I have a blurred sense of individuality and family member, right? But suppose, for example purposes, I say no, but hey, you know what? Yeah, we are family, but I'm still my own individual and I still have my choices. Okay, then my parents might say, well, then if you're not gonna live, this is my house, my rules. If you're not gonna comply, then you're gonna move out. Then like, if that part is stressful, that means gotta pay rent, right? Then I'm not paying rent, so I'm living by my mom's rules because it's literally her house. Okay, so that means I have to think about being financially independent for myself, right? So whatever the more of these flowcharts that you do, and the more you identify where you get blocked, the more you can find specific solutions that actually help your problem instead of the surface level things, right? So if I wanted to give you surface level coaching, I would have been like, yeah, but try telling your mom that, try having a template of an answer and blah 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 blah. Those all like are fine, right? Or like, I don't know, distract her. Tell your dad that you have to go out in a hurry. Yeah, but those are temporary solutions, and it doesn't really help you get rid of the root problem. So hope this video helps, and let me know if you have any questions.